All right, sure. I can go. I can go with a quick intro about myself first. So yeah, my name is Matthew. I was born in Italy, and I grew up exposed to music very much because of my parents. My dad's a guitarist. My mom played saxophone for a few years, and I grew up surrounded by vinyls, a lot of rock and roll, a lot of blues, funk, you name it. I started playing drums at the age of 16, almost, in a serious way with, proper academic background and being taught by half decent people that nurtured me for a few years. And at the age of about 20, I started touring around Italy and a little bit of Europe as well with one band first, then another one. One was a Pink Floyd tribute band that went on for a few years, and another band was a bit of a fusion, sort of jazz funk project that we had. And that went on until I actually came to Australia, where, I had less of an opportunity to play, except for a few, random open mics and a few different things like that. Obviously, I kept drumming going as my background passion. I picked up guitar as well in the meantime, just to stay around music, until one fine day I met favorite gentleman here, Heath, who is a sensational musician and songwriter. I actually met him at a wedding, and we started talking about music, and we clicked back then. And his music immediately struck me as something fresh, something new, something I would say. With identity, so music that truly touches the heart, and I thought it was worth actually investing time and effort in collaborating with Heath into starting the project that is today Colorado and Co. Obviously, I knew Andy from before as well. Incredible bassist, probably one of the best bassists one can find around. An incredible person as well. And the thing went ahead until we merged efforts and forces, and Andy ended up being in the band with us, and he's been contributing ever since as well. So through different walks of life, we all met and started playing together, and playing a lot of his music, as well as quite a few covers, from Michael Jackson to Stevie Wonder and a few others. And the project has been going ever since. So long intro, but I'll pass it on to Heath or Andy.
I was just gonna say, thank you very much. That's it. I've got it all. We can finish the conversation.
So yeah, I'm Andy. I obviously play the bass in the band, and maybe I'll speak for Sam as well, because he's not here. But me and Sam actually know each other back from high school days in Adelaide. We're both from Adelaide, and we were kind of in the same music class back in high school. So we were playing in a jazz band, and Sam's kind of more the classical piano background. That he had his 60-year-old, 70-year-old, real strict teacher, and his technique is impeccable because of that. Whereas my introduction to music was Fall Out Boy and Green Day, and
yes,
with
my generation, yes, totally.
That's it. Yeah. So Pete Wentz is an embarrassing gateway into bass playing from Fall Out Boy, and then I actually went on to study an undergrad in jazz performance of all things. And played in Adelaide a fair bit. After moving to Sydney, similar to Matt, didn't play around for a while until really met these guys, and
And now the front man.
Yeah, so I'm Heath. I obviously grew up in Colorado. I grew up listening to City and Color, like Noah Gunderson, a lot of songwriters, and then I had a lot of sprees of just the Red Hot Chili Peppers. A lot of hard rock stuff, like a typical American with Linkin Park, or even Rise Against. But I, as a cliche, I started singing and playing the guitar after my first heartbreak when I was 16, maybe. And so I just picked up my dad's guitar and kind of went for it. And then I didn't really give it a go until I got out of school at college, and again, I went through another heartbreak, but I actually really tried to give music a go. And it was like hard rock. It was hard rock stuff over in Colorado. And then the project didn't take off. And so then I came out to Australia in 2019, 2018. I was following a girl I had met over at my brother's wedding. And slowly but surely, I kind of just ended up over here, never really put the guitar down. I had met Daniel, who's the violin player, and we had been jamming a little bit prior to even before I met Matt from the time. And, you know, just showed him all like my music that I had. I kind of like really toned back from my hard rock stuff into more kind of like Americana or indie. And it was just really cool how I got to play with just some really fantastic musicians across the board between everyone to see, you know, kind of how my music really shifted over into some really great productions, and just some great takes and some great memories. Honestly, I love songwriting with these guys. They all bring a really good balance. Matt really keeps us, you know, obviously not just in line with the time, but he makes sure that we're always showing up for practice and makes sure the band is going. And then Andy is a groove machine, and it's just awesome playing with these guys. And, you know, not to keep Sam and Dan out of it because they're just phenomenal. They've all been masters of their crafts for so long, and genuinely, I just consider myself a songwriter compared to these guys.
But you also need a songwriter in the band, you know, that's good to have one, I would say.
Yeah.
So what other roles or what other hats do you wear in the band?
I was about to say, Andy, what you did with the video. So you can do that. Yeah, because that was amazing.
The videography aspect, put together a little video of Break, so of us in the studio. Filmed that one with a friend actually, Aaron, shout out. And gonna do some photography as well on Sunday, so that we've actually got some decent photos to use for you know, these kind of purposes. Yeah.
To give Andy more credit, he does actually kind of like get everything. Like I'll send him over stuff, and he'd be like, "Yeah, no, that looks good," or "Yeah, no, that looks like crap." So he definitely keeps us looking fashionable.
Okay, so Andy is pretty much the bass player and the creative director of the band, let's say. And Matt?
Yeah, I'm probably in charge of ensuring that we keep practice going. As an important part of the band, you know, especially a band with 5 elements at this stage, it's quite tricky to coordinate with everyone to be present and attend practice. And I always push to actually practice more than practice less, even if we don't have any gigs planned or anything like that. I think music requires consistency, and as such, for a band to truly bond, it's truly important that we continue to practice. So it's been my role for some reason, unnamed role. It just started that way from the very beginning, that, you know, I'm always the one chasing everyone to ensure that practice happens. And probably the second sort of background role that I have is a bit of the IT person, or, you know, help Heath setting up the various systems that we have, you know, in the band, just because my background is in IT actually. So it's always good to have that back and forth between Heath and myself around, you know, what do we set up, how do we do it, etc. So yeah.
It's May 2023. When did the band start?
It's hard to say when the initial time started, because I would say the foundations of when things started happening is when Matt and I started jamming. And Matt, when did we start jamming? Was that 8 months ago?
Yeah, I reckon it was 8 months ago, and it was quite soon after we met. It was literally, I think, a week and a half. We went to Staves first time we actually played together. So yeah, I reckon about 8 months ago. And I think we started playing Break soon after that, you know, as a sort of song that you brought up, and we started jamming on it. Because I remember when Andy joined and Dan joined, I already had the bass groove for Break. So yeah, I reckon Break started to come together 7 months ago, thereabouts.
Yeah, and I would think that sounds about right. But we kind of had our toes in a couple of other pieces too. But Break kind of just stayed on as like our jam that we get into for our practices, Sabu. And then it just really accelerated when I guess when we got Andy in there to get the groove down in the back line. And that's when we really started actually working on the track. And so it was Dan and I had known each other, and then Matt and I had been jamming. We brought along Dan, and then we brought along Andy maybe 6 months ago. Is that right, Andy? Maybe 7?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to say before you continue that you just blew my mind, because I thought you were going to say like, oh, we've been doing this for like, before we released the single for like 6 years, like getting everything ready, jamming the songs, like getting all the production, and you're like 6-7 months. That is, that is actually impressive, because, and I'm not saying that because, it doesn't normally happen, but the level of production that you have on the first song, like I listened to the second one as well, but because the first one has the video as well, so I could see how you play together as a band. And I've read some of the short reviews that you got from other music curators, which are accurate, and they say the production is top, which I also think it's the case. It's just mind-blowing to see that, you as a band have been going for half a year and you've arrived at this level of, I would say, professionalism already. So congrats on that, honestly. That is hard to achieve.
Thank you very much.
So I can tell, and, it's, from what I'm hearing now, obviously you're not newbies to this business, so you've been doing stuff before. So I guess it helps as well. But it is really impressive that in 6 months you would be able to put something like this together. You said something which is which kind of I tried to picture in my mind. You said you were jamming with Dan, who is the violin player, yeah? So the fiddler. How do you jam with the fiddler? I always kind of associate jamming with like guitars and stuff.
When I'm where I'm from, we all talk like this, and so there's a lot of like bluegrass and like a lot of folk and a lot of like fiddle ripping. So even when Dan and I kind of got together, we started shifting covers. Like we came out with this really cool version of a bluegrass that smells like Teen Spirit by Nirvana.
Okay. Oh wow, okay.
So like I would give it like a real train kind of rhythm and sing it while he would do like this really epic lead into it. And so that's basically it. I work really well actually in Colorado in that way, just because that's kind of how the home folk did it over there.
But then let me ask you this. Is the fiddle easy to kind of incorporate in a live set?
I wouldn't say it's been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel is very experienced on the violin. He's probably one of the best musicians out there. And he, runs his violin through a series of effects that he's finely tuned. And I think I can't necessarily speak for him, but he puts it through a good amount of processing in order to fill a field. And he does a great job. And I don't think I don't think it's been an issue at all. He's also able to kind of switch, like he dual wields the violin or the electric guitar. So in some aspects, we do let him go over and use the electric as well. But I don't know, Matt, what do you reckon? It hasn't really been an issue.
No, I think the beauty of what we do is that we're a very acoustic band, and in that sense, we at least at this stage we don't have any pre-recorded backing tracks or any of that stuff, any particular effects. So you can get all of our instruments anywhere, even in a grass field somewhere, and we'll come out with the same sound in many ways. So it's really a matter of getting the best out of our acoustic instruments, because really, again, we barely have an electric guitar. Then Daniel plays his electric guitar here and there, but he's not the centerpiece of any songs at this stage. It's more the violin, which is an acoustic instrument that you could play even not amplified. And the same applies to, I think, most of our instruments. So we're very much an acoustic band, and that sort of simplifies our ability to feel any stage, from a small stage to hopefully soon enough, big stadiums, or who knows what.
Yeah. So.
Be still, my heart. Be still, my heart.
I'll just start on the lyric side of things, but I'll definitely let the groove masters over there talk to you about like the evolution of what we did with it. But I wrote the song probably at least 10 years ago when I was at school, and I wrote it for my friend and his name was Eric, and he was going through some heartbreak stuff with this girl, and it was just like one of the first songs I kind of just like wrote in kind of an indie style, but I always actually played the harmonica with it as well. The song has been played with a couple of other musos, but it hasn't ever been taken to this level from once I introduced it to these guys. But yeah, lyrically, I just wrote it for my friend a long time ago. It was something I wrote in Colorado. But I'll leave it to you guys to kind of talk about how we actually built it.
What I can add is the first time I heard Break, I believe, Heath, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a recording basically voice and guitar. So it wasn't a complete song. And when we started playing it, my approach to playing drums is always to try and understand what the songwriter is trying to communicate. So if there is already some structure in a song, my approach is always to try and not overstep and really try to listen and come up with a groove that sort of flows well with what's already there. It could be just lyrics, it could be, obviously in the case of what Heath wrote, the guitar part as well. And that worked quite well. I tried a few different things, and I remember initially I was trying to do more than I should have done. And immediately after, I tried to scale it back. And that's when I thought, the bass groove for Break started to sound really well. What really makes it, I think, is the syncopated kick drum that sort of really gives the song a non-straight sense as a pop song would be. But it sort of keeps it quite original and tasty in many ways, and that's obviously when Andy came in with his excellent bass, and the two things just merged together in a way that I wouldn't feel like changing a single note, at least from my side. And it just sounded fantastic. So although I could have done a lot more in terms of complicating the groove, I think from a drummer's perspective, I let the band sit on that groove and speak, everyone with their own instruments and their own voices. So yeah, probably give it to Andy.
Yeah, I just to like add on to that, I guess, having 5 people and having like the amount of instruments on that track, it can get a bit, muddy if we're all doing too much. So we'll try and, leave space for each other on the track. And so that, every instrument has, its part kind of in the song, whether it's the keys in, little, little intricate kind of melodies between sections, and harmonica and violin. And obviously we had Ash on the recording as well, playing the slide guitar. So even another element to add. So yeah, really, towards the end of the track, obviously it all really comes together and really builds. But yeah, just having that space for each instrument has been important.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the music in a bit more, because I want to link it as well with the genre that you came up with, or like, around the genre. But I want to go back to Heath now, to the lyrics for a second. So you said you wrote it about 10 years ago. And it's also interesting because, sometimes when I dig up my stuff that I wrote 10 years ago, it would be like, oh my God, cringy. I don't want to even see it. And it's not even relevant anymore. So, it's interesting that you would dig up lyrics that you wrote such a long time ago, and they would still be relevant and you would still connect with them, because, we all change as people, and, it just might not be the case. Is there a story, in the lyrics, or is there any background to it that you want to share with me and everybody potentially listening?
I think just as a start, I would say I'm the kind of songwriter that can just sit down and write something out for like 30 minutes and then I call it done, just based off of a feeling that I'll have. Like if I try to sit down and pick a topic, or someone gives me a topic to write about, I'll just never get it done, because like I'm just not interested to get it done. Like if it's not emotional for me and it doesn't resonate with anyone, I'm just like, it's crap. Like I'm just not going to deal with it. And I would say that Break has always been able to kind of connect or relay how I've been able to transcribe a situation onto how someone could feel. Because I think the trick to songwriting is not writing what you want to say, but ultimately actually discovering what you wanted to say. And I think that comes along with the perspective on how Break is written. I didn't actually really write it for my friend. I actually wrote it for this person that was abusing my friend.
Right.
And it kind of like put a little bit of a different tangent on it, on you know, me not directly writing about my friend and
Okay.
allowing that to kind of grow and build. And I think that that works in the atmosphere with you know, working with the band to where they can feed off of what they think the song is, regardless of what I made the song to be.
Okay, cool. So, you know, one of the reasons why we're speaking today is because I think it's interesting, and that's ultimately what I look for as well. And that kind of combination of rock and folk doesn't happen very often. So I'm just wondering whether that was a deliberate action to, or like a deliberate choice to make something interesting, or did it come naturally to you that you would combine the classical kind of instruments, which is the fiddle is in a way, and then, you know, with the very modern ones, like, you know, used in contemporary music, like, you know, drums and bass?
I think it very much came naturally, Saba, to be honest. It was just a combination of great musicians and just different instruments coming to the table together, and everyone working together to ensure that, again, everyone has the right space to express themselves.
Mhm.
And the end result really didn't have to be built in any particular way, which is maybe why it didn't take us, you know, 2 years to put the song together. You know, literally already a few months ago when we were playing live, we pretty much had the version that you hear in the recording. And that's again because every musician is pretty much at a similar level in terms of skills, in terms of their musical background, and everyone knew exactly how to contribute in the right space to own what they brought into the song. Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, I'm also asking from a perspective of a former band manager of a band that had cello in it too. So they didn't have, you know, they had bass and the cello, and like there's different elements. So, you know, I guess sometimes people might be really surprised when they see, you know, those classical instruments combined in the band, and they're gonna, like, before hearing the sound, you might assume that it's going to be a boring thing, like they're going to just play us orchestra, you know, whatever, and symphony and stuff. But it's super interesting. I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything to it, Heath.
I would, you know, just take off and say that it did come naturally. But I think it comes from a basis of, I think everybody in the band we don't want to just write a track that's going to sound like something. We want to be able to push the limits of what we're coming at with stuff. Because, you know, I really like to be dynamic on my voice, as well as I think Sam likes to be dynamic on the keys, or Dan likes to be dynamic on the violin. And it's a give and take, I think, you know, between the band and just seeing what we can create.
I wanted to also tell you, Heath, that I think your voice is amazing. You've got this raspiness in it, like a very rock one, you know. It's like wailing, you know, and your vocal range is also like impressive. So were you in like rock bands before?
Thank you. Yeah, so the project I was in before was pretty hard rock. And I would really let it go. Like I would really give like and even like an Ollie Sykes kind of just like scream it sometimes. But I kind of just mellowed back a little bit, but I didn't really, my friends and my family, they really loved the edginess that my voice had. So I never really actually wanted to lose it. But I was also kind of able to do the soft falsetto stuff as well. So I'm always like trying to push the limits of, you know, where can my voice take me? And to be honest, I probably should have done some like vocal lessons. I've only really picked it up from like my mother and sister who sing. But I'm always trying to just be like, how far can I push this one end or the other?
Be still my heart and sing my soul. Be free my mind.
On a quick story of Still, we only really went into the studio to get Break done. And if we had the chance, we were going to get Still done. And it was kind of a fling. Like, we kind of just were like, all right, we'll go in there. If we have time, we'll do the back line for it. But we actually didn't plan on finishing Still at the time that it was, and nor coming back to do it.
We actually parked Still for some time. I think there was a period where we sort of didn't play Still. We didn't feel it was complete or something like that. And we just parked it for a few months, and then all of a sudden it came back to us, and it, you know, we refined it just enough, and it started sounding amazing.
To be honest, we had not really wanted to go for the album until we released these tracks. And Matt just, does that sound right, Matt? We probably wouldn't have tried to take the strides to get on to being like, okay, well, we want to come up with an album. But we didn't stop working on other tracks at the same time that we were working on these two. We actually had in mind 2 other tracks ready to go, which are, I would actually probably say, stick with the same genre that we're trying to do, but they don't sound anything like the other 2 songs that we just released. One is called Toothpick and the other is called Whiskey Eyes. Matt, what would you call those songs? Like Toothpick would probably be the hardest one to genreify, but what do you reckon?
I would, I think Toothpick, and I was thinking about it the other day when we were rehearsing, both Toothpick and Move, Saba, which is another song that it's currently in the works, they're taking a bit of a prog rock angle, right? So a bit of truly progressive rock angle from the 80s, I would say, something like that, because of the contribution of the keys and violin that fill up, or guitar, that fill up those wonderful mid ranges. And they have all these sort of intros that build up, and it really reminds me of, again, prog rock bands. So that there's maybe a mixture right now that's happening between indie, maybe Americana / folk, and prog rock. So that seems to be the sound that the band is sort of refining at the moment with the current songs that we're working on.
I probably have 20 songs written that I have just kind of backed up. And I would say, Matt, we're probably got 7 songs ready to go to perform for people, with another 3 on the way. And yeah, no, we're ready to just kind of get it out there. You're up, Matt.
Throwing the drummer under the bus.
It's always a drummer's fault. Look, I think from here there's some consolidation that needs to happen, Saba, around who the musicians are in the long term, right? So that's one of the things. It's one of the issues that all bands have when things start becoming serious. Then you start asking the right questions to everyone. What is it that you want to do? Do you want to stick around? Is this your main project? Do you want to invest in it? Do you believe in it? So that it's sort of, we are in this phase where we know we have potential as a band, and now we have to understand, where do we go with this potential, and how the musicians continue to contribute. Once that it's done, and it's probably going to be work in progress anyways, which it is the same for all bands anyways. Once that it's done, I think for us to continue recording tracks in the studio is really critical, because not only it allows us to get those songs out to the world, but it also gets us to grow as musicians and as a band, and gives us the ability to refine that sound, work with sound engineers as well, and really create that identity around the sound that the band has and continues to develop. And finally, I think from there onwards is to continue, obviously, working with Heath on his fantastic songs, but at the same time get a bit of contribution for all the musicians to try and grow the band further from there, and try as well to get on to some interesting festivals and that music scene that we were talking about around Australia. Try to really ride it as much as possible, and really try to move away from the small pubs and the small venues into possibly something a little bit bigger, where we're able to really get our music out to bigger audiences.
Fair enough.
Heath, you go with that.
I think just like Matt said, we're at a growth stage. Just to realize, hey, this is actually cool. It's not just us thinking that it is cool. And we want to promote it. And I think an old friend of mine named Donnie Morales in the States taught me that there's 3 stages in a musician. There's the first musician who's mastering his craft. And then the second stage would be someone who does it for a living. But then the third stage is someone that just enjoys it. And I think that we want to push it as much as we can, get as much enjoyment that we can out of it. And I think that does take responsibility and growth to fully enjoy what it's going to look like. But you know, I'll say the sky is the limit as far as, you know, how much we want to enjoy and experience the avenues. Like I'm excited to try to get out and play all these things just with these guys and, you know, explore what the music has to take us.
And again, I have to say that, you know, respect again, because it's not every day that you would speak to a band that is very aware of where they are in their kind of like musical journey, if you know what I mean, and knows, you know, what they want to do with it. And I don't know if it comes from your background again, like in having done something with music before, but you know, it's good to see that you know where you are and what you want to do. But now speaking of what you want to do,
I would say just from a perspective of kind of a frontman-y kind of view, networking. Like I just want to see all of the other cool people out there that are doing, you know, nearly the same thing, and the endless possibilities of just meeting people that are, you know, enjoying it and enjoying the sound that they have. I think that would be something ultimately that I'm really looking forward to try to get into with the music, is meet people and then even have a way for building a relationship with fans and like even getting their feedback on being like, hey, this sounds really cool. Or you guys, you know, actually have a healthy relationship with a group of people that have healthy feedback and have something to say.
I think if I can add
Mhm.
something, I think our music is really trying to touch people. So we have just so much passion for music and for what we do as musicians, and it's never a burden to go to rehearsals or to have conversations around where our music should go, how to build it, how to keep the band together. It's at least for me, but I think it reflects on every member of the band. There's you know, it's almost a dream come true to be able to collaborate with such exceptional musicians, and we put that effort into our music, which we hope is translated into people listening to it and really being touched in some way or another. It could be you know, the amazing melodies, it could be the great instruments, or the togetherness of everything that comes across to them, the lyrics obviously, and the songwriting work that Heath does as well. So yeah, we truly want to stress the fact that we are very passionate musicians, and we want to try and keep it that way, because we don't do it for money, at least at this stage. I think we all have our own jobs and we all have our own lives, so it's truly a contribution to the music scene that I think we all want to maintain. Yeah.
Cool. Anything
I
else?
think that,
Heath.
I think that really hits it on
Yeah.
the head though. And I think that we haven't really just made it the nature to kind of like for it to be our all in, as much as we want to just have that passion and just see where it takes us. Like we'd probably be more keen to go travel somewhere and play somewhere instead of get paid right up front to do it, to be honest. Like we'd rather just be the experience and just feel the passion behind it. So that's where we're about right now, I reckon. And to be honest, Sabo, like I've really enjoyed sending it out. Like it's a bit brutal sometimes sending everything on Submit Hub out just to, you know, kind of get some brutal feedback on everything. But they're kind of just like, oh no, this is too alt country for me. And I'm like, where did alt country even come from? Like I don't even know. So it's been cool to get a lot of feedback on the genre that we have, because it just kind of proves over to us that it's original. No one's doing stuff like this and we like it.